Hello and welcome to an all-new SuperConnectivity. I am your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is...
Phil, I don't know what my nickname is these days, Parrot.
Hello, Phil. Phil, the unknown parrot. Great to have you here, Phil. So much I want to talk about lately. Um, One thing, let's, want to start off with our crazy fan theories.
Sure.
Let's give them a nice little treat to start. So crazy fan theories. So as we all know, in our recent Sam Wilson Captain America, which is a book that both me and Phil are loving, we have a new and interesting character called the Whisperer, who is our sort of Ed Snowden stealing secrets, turning them over to the world kind of guy. And the question that we come to is who is the Whisperer? And now remember, and this is just one thing to think about, and maybe this can actually even be kind of a hint. Um, Captain America, Sam Wilson Captain America, is our first book post Battle World where we have people returning from the dead. In our first issue, we had Dennis D-Man Duffy, who had an on panel death in the old Captain America series. He's been brought back. The other guy who's back from the dead is Carl Malice. And so it got me thinking, what if that have it opening up with two dead guys is very intentional? And what if they're trying to tell us that this new mystery character, the Whisperer, is also someone that we think is dead? And it struck me, do you know who would make a great Whisperer? Jack Monroe.
Yes.
Yes, the Bucky of the 1950s, Cap's former friend Nomad, abandoned by Cap, left to his own madness, and eventually murdered by Bucky. So he's definitely got some issues. Is known to wax crazy, and if people think he's dead, he may still have access to things that people don't think he would have access to. That's the thing. So we know that Demolition Duffy is alive, and no one's mentioned that he used to be dead. We know that Carl Malice is alive, and no one seems to be mentioning that he used to be dead. But does that mean that everyone who's going to be coming back is going to just never have died, or are there people that we think are gone that will come back? Who will people have thought were dead, but that weren't as dead as we thought. And so this idea that Jack Monroe could be the Whisperer, to me, it's very interesting. He'd have these secret, he might have these secret, super spy back doors that he knew about in Shield that he could get this information from and get it out to the public. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. As he could be really angry, because one, nobody saved him, and two, Bucky killed him. So, like, not too long after he killed him, his murderer went on to be Captain America for a time too. The
Oh
whole
yeah,
country was loving him for a while.
absolutely. There's a lot of reasons to be really angry. If you're Jack Monroe Bucky, you were abandoned by your heroes. You've been abandoned by your country, and so seeking a little revenge, and in its own way, a very heroic revenge. You're revealing these dark secrets that people don't want revealed, and so Jack Monroe coming out of the woodwork. So that is crazy fan theory number one. Um,
Hmm?
but now, Phil, do you have a crazy fan theory on who else might be the Whisperer?
I've got a couple of them, but I guess I'll go with the one I told you before. What if it's Cap's old girlfriend, Bernie Rosenthal? She was a lawyer, so she would know how to distribute some of this sensitive data and
And as a former girlfriend of Cap, she may have some of Cap's old security codes, stuff he
uh,
wrote down on a piece of paper and left in her apartment. No, and
or
there's and that's the thing is that there's lots of ways that people can get this information, and it's I think one of the questions that we have to ask is who might have this interest and who might want to release it. Another interesting thing with this and why Jack Monroe might have some affinity for Falcon is, of course, when Bucky's first awakened, it's with Falcon that's in Captain America and the Falcon when they first meet 50s Cap and 50s Bucky. So they may have an affinity as fellow sidekicks there. Um, but yes, and Bernie Rosenthal is a very fascinating concept for that. As you say, she is a lawyer, so she's certainly got she was as I recall, she was a public defender, so she definitely has that let's watch the Watchmen kind of attitude going. So that's an interesting one. And you also had another theory, which was that maybe it's Diamondback.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of intriguing to me because, of course, that goes into this idea that we had suggested that what if the Whisperer is actually a bad guy? What if the Whisperer is someone who has a grudge against Shield, has a grudge against Cap, and maybe has has some inside knowledge, or maybe has some affiliations that are not necessarily the most noble. Maybe if it is Diamondback, maybe she wants to. One of the things I think that we've seen recently in Marvel is with Black Cat and and some other characters where they've kind of upped their game on their villainy. And people that were kind of
Mm-hmm.
like walked the line of, oh, I'm a good guy, I'm a bad guy, kind of went all straight over to, no, I'm a bad guy. And I'm not pretending to be a good guy. I want what's mine. And that might be an interesting take on Diamondback there. uh
But to complete the ex girlfriend trifecta, where's Sharon Carter been lately?
Now that is interesting. Sharon Carter, and there's a lot of different ways we can go with Sharon Carter on this. Point one, of course, Sharon Carter isn't really an active field member. She's kind of aged out of the post, I guess, over the last 12 years because she was stuck in the Z dimension. They said for, I guess, 12 years or some prolonged period. Of course, kind of odd to, as I always said, it's kind of interesting that, oh well, now that Sharon's 12 years older, and you're now showing yourself as 80 years old, you guys can be together because that's not creepy. It's like, oh, she's no longer 18, so that she might as well be. It's like Tilda Swinton, she's the ancient one now. So it's not like she's like 102. She's maybe in her 40s, and Cap is still in his 80s. And maybe even if we're going to say Cap's in great shape, which again, that's a whole other thing. Is Cap really supposed to be in great shape if he doesn't have the super soldier serum? Of course, that's a whole other thing about the super soldier serum, and because usually when you take away the Cap super soldier serum, he was young. And then you've had other times where they've aged him, but he had the super soldier serum. Now they've they've aged him and taken away the super soldier serum. Except they kind of don't seem to have taken away the super soldier serum. So it's all very confusing.
Yeah. Yeah, but they did have that storyline. What was it, late 80s maybe, when he was caught in a drug explosion, so they had to give him like a complete blood transfusion, so he thought this super soldier serum was gone, but it eventually like regenerated itself, I guess.
Oh yeah, and that certainly is a possibility there. I mean, there was also a storyline where when he was fighting the Red Skull artificially aged him, and I believe took away his super soldier serum in that as well, so they could fight as two equally old men.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, Red Skull.
No.
I guess Red Skull wanted it to be fair. How fair could it be if he knew he had a backup clone body just waiting that Zola was gonna zap his mind into? So wah wah.
No.
Always have a back door. That's the way. And this is another thing to think about. Is with in gaining access to this computerized information, and of course, in the Marvel universe, being able to make computers do magical things translates into, I'm also a smart guy. But it's a thing that people always forget about people who have the super soldier serum, that they also have peak human intelligence. And that's from Captain America #1, where they say he has peak human strength, he has the peak of human strength and intelligence. So you actually get this sort of IQ boost. But now I've always made this idea that that when William Burnside and when Cap got it, they were already really smart guys, so they didn't notice that they were getting a bit of an IQ boost, and maybe in their own way they were already at that peak human intelligence kind of level, and maybe it just more transcended as reflexes. But for Jack Monroe, maybe it wasn't, and maybe Jack Monroe has more intellect now that he's back from the dead. But it also struck me another person that might have that um, intellectual boost and sort of a forgotten character from Marvel's past who might have a reason to become Protocide would be, or sorry, might have a just give it away, might have a
Mm-hmm.
reason to be the Whisperer would be Protocide. Protocide was, for those who forget, from I want to say it was the early aughts Captain America story, or was it maybe the late '90s? No, I think it had to be early aughts because I was already in New Jersey when
Yeah.
it came out. But Protocide was essentially the night before Steve Rogers gets his formula from Erskine. They give him a formula as well. Now it's interesting because this is where we first get this concept of the two doses. You have the drunken formula and the injected formula. So there's two different ways, and like the whole process is you drink the substance, you inject the substance, and then you get the Vitarays, and that makes you a Captain America. But somehow each of these different components have been lost. And what Jack Monroe and William Burnside, 50s Caps and Bucky had was the injectable, but they didn't have the oral solution. What Protocide got was just the oral solution. But of course, what that actually means is that when he's brought back, he's probably given that other half of the formula when AIM brings him back, because of course, basically what happens is he has the uncontrolled reaction, he has a heart attack, and he dies. But they put him in cryostasis, and then years later, AIM digs him out from one of these top men facilities, where they have all the top secret MacGuffins, and they pull him out and they bring him back and they stabilize his formula. But it strikes me, well, what they might have done to stabilize his formula was since William Burnside's version of the formula is well known, they might have used that as the basis to stabilize his formula, which means that he got both ends of the formula, with the exception of the Vitarays. Although maybe they gave him a Vitaray treatment too. I don't know. Name brand Vitarays. Anyway, but here's the thing. And it was theorized that Protocide might have some kind of cognitive dysfunction because he wasn't talking. But I thought, well, no, maybe Protocide wasn't talking because he wasn't used to being that smart. Because of course, and that's the thing, is that Captain America, William Burnside, the other guys who got this formula, they were all smart guys. William Burnside was a PhD history major. So they were all guys who had, and of course, Steve was always an artist and all these things. So he was always very smart to start with. And then when he got this stuff, he didn't realize how much smarter he became. McClinton, who is Protocide, he was just a grunt and a brawler who, maybe wasn't the dumbest guy, wasn't the smartest guy in the world, or wasn't the dumbest guy in the world, but he wasn't setting the world on fire either. And so when he gets the formula and his brain starts moving at a much faster capacity than he's used to, he's not going to speak because he's seeing things for the first time in a way that most people don't. And Protocide was shown to be alive at the end of his last battle, and then he just disappears. And it strikes me, well, what's a guy like Protocide going to do? He's going to go start researching this world he's in. Maybe he's going to try and figure out what happened to him, what happened to other people from the 40s. Perhaps he's going to uncover Isaiah Bradley, and other people that maybe got this formula and that were also mistreated. And maybe he sort of realizes that the government has been just really running roughshod over people, experimenting on them, treating them so horribly for so long that he's going to have to do something about it. And rather than just be a guy who attacks, now that he's got his peak intellectual brain, he's going to find where are the weaknesses, and the weaknesses are people's secrets. And so he becomes the Whisperer. It's a crazy, crazy fan theory. And it works just as well for Jack Monroe, because Jack Monroe is also going to have that peak human intelligence. If he can not be crazy, he can actually focus himself, and so it works for Jack Monroe as well. I do think that whoever the Whisperer is going to be revealed to be, it's going to be someone that we've met before. I do think it's going to be
Yeah.
something deeper than just just some guy,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you have any other interesting fan ideas for who with the Whisperer might be?
I have one more theory, but it's probably not him. Just when they showed the figure, it was just like a shadowy figure, and I don't know if it was just the artist rendition, but the figure had pointy ears.
Oh,
Who haven't we seen post Secret Wars yet? Namor.
Namor. Hmm.
And who's been working with Captain America and the government off and on since World War II?
Yeah.
Namor.
And who certainly has a beef against everybody? Namor.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, he's just full of beef. Oh, and actually, that was one other thing. Getting back to Sharon Carter, because I got into my little rant about ageism and poor Sharon Carter, who really hasn't been anywhere. It's like, okay, so they just retired her, and like now Cap's hanging out at Shield all the time, but Sharon Carter's just nowhere. I mean, it's kind of weird that they did, but when they did the return of when they did of course we remember that at the very end of the Sam Wilson first the first official Sam Wilson is Cap issue of Captain America.
Yeah.
They did this little storyline in the back where you have this character leaving the party to go join this group of evil people. Now, I had made some comments on this at the time as to who the group of evil people, who this woman was, and there was a lot of talk that it might have been Sharon Carter because she, of course, did this whole turn on Jet Black, and she ran off. And so they said, well, maybe it's Sharon Carter, but I thought, well, that's unlikely because Sharon Carter just got back from Dimension Z. I don't think that she would be this inner circle Hydra agent. But who it could be, and this was interesting because this was this whole thing because this is a very deep, deep, deep story, and I mentioned this before when I think I mentioned this when this issue came out. When they're doing the image of the character arriving, it's clearly a female because of the way her legs are shaped. It's clearly they've got very long, feminine legs. They show that she's wearing knee pads and that she's flying. Now, I don't know who flew, but the person who was wearing knee pads like that at that time was Mockingbird. But you can say, but Mockingbird can't fly. Unless Mockingbird is a Skrull. And this was this very interesting thing. When Mockingbird came back, there was a lot of hints that maybe she's a Skrull. Maybe she's a Skrull. And in the solicit for one of the issues of Siege at that time, they said, and in this issue, the secret of Mockingbird's secret is revealed. And then they never revealed anything. And the only thing that happened in that issue was Clint thought Mockingbird died, and then she didn't. And it was such a weird thing that they kind of like were hinting towards, and then they just pulled away from it right away. And I thought maybe someone decided that, hey, if Mockingbird is really a Skrull, and we're going to have Mockingbird be this person playing both sides of the field, let's not reveal that now. Let's put that in our back pocket. Let's bring that out later. And so Mockingbird, as the Whisperer, and as this secret member of the Hydra elite, possibly working against Cap, possibly working against Sam, is a really interesting concept, at least to me. Because it is this thing where they were hinting at it for a while, so that basically a guy like me can say, oh, I saw them doing this and this and this and this, and now I see how it connects. And for a lot of people, it's just going to come right out of left field, where they go, well, what? Mockingbird, huh? And to me, that's kind of interesting.
Mark his words, people.
Yes, although me, for myself, I'm still hoping it's Protocide. I want to see Protocide. I mean, another possibility could also be, Patriot, who has disappeared from the New Avengers storyline. We don't know what happened to Patriot, but in the last New Avengers storyline that they were running, he had disappeared and had been replaced by some kind of weird, pan-dimensional doppelganger. So that was something weird going on. I don't know what happened with that, but there's a lot of interesting dangling storylines around the Captain America story. But I think, like I said, they're definitely hinting at right now there's a lot of big things going on, and exactly how they're going to play out isn't quite clear yet. But among the things that we know for sure is a lot of dead people keep on showing up in Captain America, and I gotta
Hmm.
wonder if that's intentional.
Hmm.
Mm. Uh, so so anyway, so that's our crazy fan theory section of super connectivity this week. Um,
Hmm.
let's see here. One other thing I wanted to talk about, and this is something that's kind of been bugging me a bit, and it's a very controversial topic in nerddom in this day and age, and that is this question of how we handle diversity in comics. And as we've said, the all new, all different Marvel universe is pretty all new, pretty all different, and filled with a excuse me, filled with a breaking down of what the previous establishment rules of society are. And it was something that kind of struck me. We were having a conversation offline earlier, and you had posted a picture of the Illuminati of Namor and Reed Richards and Charles Xavier and Tony Stark and Doctor Strange. And like what struck me right there looking at this, like, wow, what a bunch of old white men. And it struck me like how this and just here, if you ever want to have a definition of what white privilege is, this is what white privilege is. It's seeing something that for the first time that, oh wow, they were all those old heroes who were the secret society ruling the earth were all a bunch of white guys, and that maybe was important. But you don't even realize that it's odd that, hey, all the old white guys are in the Illuminati because you're just a white guy comic book fan, and all the superheroes had always been white, so you never thought about it. And just the fact that you don't even think about how what an interesting choice that was to make in this story. Um, and then when they do the tale of the Illuminati, they do so that they asked T'Challa to join, so they wouldn't have been all white guys, but he says no, I'm the king of Wakanda. I cannot get involved in your crazy conspiracies here, Reed Richards. Get the heck out of my country. Um,
Uh,
but it's an interesting statement that when the Illuminati is created, they do take this idea that, and this is really, in many ways, the reveal of the Illuminati is sort of the unveiling of what the all new, all different Marvel becomes. Because this is where you first get this idea that there has been a power structure behind the scenes in the Marvel universe of the old line heroes, of the good guys who were maybe not being as good as they really should have been because they were keeping secrets and they were hiding things and they were, manipulating events in ways that you don't really think about heroes doing. And all for the greater good, all because they knew best. But at a certain point, as Captain America points out, smartest guys in the room, and all they want to do is build a bomb. And it's this interesting statement to me that, okay, so when we first get the Illuminati, it's these five white guys, or six white guys, strange. But it's this group of white guys, of old line heroes. And now, as it has progressed, the next iteration of this comes in, and you've got what is essentially Osborn's cabal, which of course is all
hmm.
villains. But immediately you see, oh, we have more diversity because immediately you get into this two women, white women, sure. Loki, who at that time we didn't understand exactly why Loki was a woman, although now we knew. But Loki was a woman, and Emma Frost, who is a woman, being brought to this table because Osborn, as a breaker, and it's important to remember that when Osborn first comes into the story, he really sees himself as much of as the good guy as Reed Richards saw himself when he founded the Illuminati. I mean, that's the truth of it. That Osborn wanted to be a hero in his own way, and he failed. And of course, part of that was because of Loki's manipulation. But he wanted to be a hero, and so even though they are repeating the mistakes of the past, at least there are more and different voices at the table. When we next get the Illuminati, of course, now we've added T'Challa, but we still have no women on the team because the good guys just can't bear to have a woman on the team. And and again, this comes back to us after the whole incursion thing, when we actually get our first really diverse group of heroes, the Mighty Avengers, basically calling Reed Richards out because Richards, well, no, we kept the secret because we had to sort this out. And the Blue Marvel sitting there saying, Reed, first off, did you ever think that maybe we would have knowledges that you didn't have? Did you ever think that maybe if you would come to other people with this problem, other people might have had knowledge? As the Blue Marvel points out, he is as smart, if not smarter than Reed Richards. He actually has a unique knowledge of pan-dimensional energies because his neutronium is this superpositional antimatter matter construct that he discovered, just prior to this, he and the Mighty Avengers are dealing with the Beyonders in the Beyond. So they are actually have this greater knowledge. And of course, hey, Ms. Marvel, she's been dealing with the Beyonders for a while, as we learned. This idea that because it's an interesting concept in the greater story that they're telling, the greater story that Marvel has been spinning here, as they expand out from the old line heroes who were good heroes, good men, good, decent men, but were all of a certain caste and all of a certain type. These were all, white men, super geniuses, as is sometimes criticized. In early Stan and Jack writings, they were all alpha men. They were all the alpha men. The can never, go. They're super geniuses whose gut instincts are never wrong, and they always make the right choice, and always are the most active men in the scene. And that's very much what they were, who they were, and who defined them. And in dismantling it, I think Marvel has told in this greater art this idea that anytime you have too much of one thing at the table, it becomes an Ouroboros. It eats its own tail. It becomes this thing where the smartest guys in the room are facing a threat, and the only thing they can think to do is build a bigger bomb, because that's what they do. They build bigger bombs. That's who these guys are. They're men of action who build gamma bombs and arc reactors and spaceships to fight, to explore and conquer the universe and beat the Ruskies to the moon. That's who these old men were. And Cap, who ironically is the oldest man there, but is in his own way the most human character, the most noble character. He's the guy who says, just because he's not a guy, even though he does have peak human intelligence, doesn't rely on being the smartest man in the room. Doesn't walk into a room and say, I'm the smartest man in the room and I know what to do and I know how to do this. And in that sense, I think that there is this dismantling of the old Marvel universe in a very, when you look at it in reverse, you can sort of see this concept of how these old line heroes had become static, had become something that was indistinguishable from villainy in its own behavior. Even though it still operated with the most noble purposes, as anyone can point out, Dr. Doom always operated with the most noble purposes. He just knew he was right. He knew he was the guy who could be the best leader of the world. And why don't you all just accept that? And of course, as happens, Reed Richards, Dr. Doom, two sides of the same coin. As time went on, Reed became more like Doom, even though Reed never put himself on the throne, because Reed isn't all about the self-aggrandizement. He still was the guy who conquered the world, him and Tony Stark, with this Illuminati, in that they are maintaining the secret order of the world. And I think that, them, and if you think about this all as this interesting progression of stories from the Illuminati to Secret Invasion, Illuminati, which leads to Civil War, which leads to Secret Invasion, which leads to Dark Reign and Siege, and then, really Avengers versus X-Men goes in there at some point, and then Fear Itself. All these stories have at their core this idea of hiding things, protecting ourselves from the secrets that we don't want, the darkness in our past that we don't want people to know, hiding from the greater world who we really are and what is really at the core of our behaviors. And I think that the all new, all different Marvel is sort of the exploration of what do we do now that we have ripped off, now that we have thrown off the old power structure. Because once you throw off the old power structure, you get the next power structure and the next power structure. You get this more diverse world of villains and then heroes trying to rebuild from what the villains had done. And but as it breaks down and as it rebuilds, it gets a little better each time. And I like where the all new, all different Marvel universe is going. And if we are to believe that, the arc of this story is long and wide and broad, and that at each step there were intentional actions and decisions, which maybe I'm reading too much into it. But to me, that's what I see. I see that the coming to all new, all different Marvel is the ending of the old boys club of superheroes, both for good and ill. That the old boys club, they established what it meant to be a hero. They built what it meant to be a hero, but that at the end of the day, they were bound by their own myopic view of the universe. They had one view of the universe, and that was detrimental to society as a whole. And now the all new, all different Marvel universe is going to try its own hand at this, and they may not succeed, because at the end of the day, one problem when you have more voices is you get much more disagreement. And I think that's what we see with Sam Wilson, Captain America, is that we are seeing that, yes, we have more voices and now no one agrees. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. As I said, last time we were reviewing Captain America, that people always disagreed with Cap, but no one felt they could tell Cap they disagreed with him, because he was the living legend of World War II. He was, he was the soldier's soldier, and dissing Captain America, you might as well be spitting on the flag, and even though many people might do that, no one's going to do it to Cap's face. But Sam Wilson, he's no Cap. He's not my Captain America, as they keep on saying. And you know what? I think a lot of people didn't think Cap was their Captain America either, but they didn't want to say that out loud. But now, because Cap is Captain, because now that Sam Wilson is Cap, they can feel free to say it. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. It's a pretty cool arc of a story when you think about it, because that is so much more real than just, we have to respect Reed Richards, we have to respect Steve Rogers, because they are the smartest men in the room, the most noble men in the room. But at the end of the day, they're just men. They're just flawed human beings, just like everybody else. And I'm excited to see where it goes next. So that was.
I was going to say, so to wrap up, so you're comparing the Illuminati to Fox News?
No. I mean,
old white men in a room.
White men in a room. Well, it is old white men in a room. No, I'm comparing the Illuminati to the actual Illuminati. It's what it is. The powers that be. And that's what it was. And I think that was kind of the implication here, is that these powers that be, these old line powers, weren't necessarily founded to be bad guys. Because if you think about it, if a group like the actual Illuminati existed, its actual purpose was to enlighten mankind. That is the point of the Illuminati, to enlighten mankind. And that sounds so noble. But if the method you take to enlighten mankind, is to take away from mankind their free will, and to hide things from mankind that they're not ready to see, that's I think that's sort of what, and this ties back to the Whisper, the idea that there are things you're not meant to know. It's this very paternalistic view, this very old school superhero kind of view that, we can't give the world arc reactors because, well, what would they do with them? Well, I don't know. What are you doing with them, Tony Stark? You're blowing up bad guys with them. And it is this idea that, when you take this paternalistic view, when you take this idea that, we have to protect people, you're not really protecting them. You're keeping them from evolving. You're keeping them from seeing the next thing. One thing about knowledge is that every time we gain knowledge, we always learn how much less we know. It's like this: the more knowledge you gain, the more you realize that there is even more you don't know. And the more knowledge you gain, the things that you once thought were solid disappear, There was a time when the Earth stood flat in the universe, and the sun moved across the sky like paint on a wheel. And as time went on, the Earth was just another planet circling the center of the universe, the sun. And then the sun itself just became one more ball of gas in an expanding cosmos of galaxies and dark matter and dark energy and things that we cannot even begin to comprehend. And as you get that knowledge, the more knowledge you gain, the less you know. And now we're at a point where all we know is that we know nothing, to get very zen on ourselves. And that is good. It is humbling and it is frightening, but it is good to be humbled and frightened in a world that is, even just in a real world, that is big and scary. And, you start throwing Galacti into that world, and all of a sudden it gets even bigger and scarier. And so even though we want to say there are things man was not meant to know, I think it's better when we know it. And that is what the Whisperer is doing. And that is why the Illuminati fell. And that is why the Cabal rised. And now a new Illuminati of villains is coming, and maybe a Cabal of heroes to either unleash the secrets or keep them hidden. We'll have to see. But at least to protect us from whatever is the next Galacti or Beyonder coming into our universe to destroy us all. At least that's my crazy fan theory. What's yours, folks? Thank you.
I don't know. Just bravo, Charlie Esser. Bravo.
And I didn't even get to my whole rant about why there are no black nerds on adventure television, but that'll be when I can get a little hellfire on here and we can really talk about why Jimmy Olsen is not a nerd. Bugs me. Watching Supergirl, Jimmy Olsen, he's like tall, he's strong, he's sexy, and like, no, you're Superman's best pal. You're a big nerd. You're a photojournalist. You're not. And not to deride photojournalists, but you're in the AV club, Jimmy Olsen. It's not James, it's Jimmy. You're Jimmy Olsen. You're just because you're African American doesn't mean you can't be a nerd. And I think we need more black nerds on TV because
I guess you're not watching Arrow. I guess you're not watching Arrow this season
then. I watched the episode you made me watch, and
yeah,
you say it gets better. No, I just can't trust that.
Yeah, well, they introduced Curtis Holt, who was, I guess, in the comics, Michael Holt was Mr. Terrific, but in the show, it's Curtis Holt, and in the show, not only is he a black tech guy, but he's also a gay black tech guy.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Yes, but is he nerdy? You see, it's okay to be. See, that's the thing. It's like is he like Fitz? Is he like Leo Fitz? Leo Fitz is a nerdy guy, and and even though Leo can have his time where he might do something kind of action adventure-y, at the end of the day, most of the character is defined by his awkwardness and his sad sackedness, and that's what makes him. And in a panoply of characters, that's what makes him human. But if you only allow one African American character on your series, there is this urge to not make him stereotypical anything. He just becomes hyper capable. And, if you're not going to let them have, a nerdishness and an awkwardness and even a silliness because you don't want him to be seen as, oh, well, you're just making the black character be this or that, then you're going to really rob that character of humanity. And, as I say, it's telling that the one time we ever got a really awkward black nerd was on the one show where every other character was black. So you had enough black characters that, okay, we can have one character be the nerd. That, of course, is Steve Urkel. Long may his suspenders rise. But no, really, it's like the one time you got that really, that you could let a character just be an awkward, super intelligent person was when he, and be black was when everybody else, all the other black characters were taken. So, okay, we can have one character be black and be the nerd because we have to have a nerd character and it's a show about black people, so we can put a black nerd on here. But if you're going to be the black guy who comes into Shield, well, you're going to be Benjamin Britt, you're going to be Mac, you're going to be, even if you're the psychiatrist, you're still incredibly handsome and buff and strong, with Dr. Andrew, and there are different African Americans than just Denzel Washington or the latest or the TV version of a Denzel Washington. You can have a character that can have the depth and range of a Denzel Washington, who plays flawed characters and different characters. And I'm just saying, you can have that diversity on your TV cast. Don't be afraid of it. Let's embrace it, and let's have some more nerdishness of our Jimmy Olsen. Okay, we've introduced him. We've had him be, a handsome, sexy guy. Let's start revealing that he, is into Pokemon or something, and that he loves Mario and all the things that things that'll humanize him and bring him down to earth. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Anyway, anything going on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe you want to talk about, or you want to just call it a night with our rants and raves?
I say we call it a night. We got the Steve Urkel. I say we call it.
Did I do that? Okay. So, folks, no news in Marvel except for what's all in our minds. But if you have something in your mind that you want to talk about, if you have an opinion on diversity in comics and television, if you have an opinion on old white men running the world, whether it's in the Illuminati or Fox News or just the Senate and the presidency, if you have an opinion, share it with us. You can write to me at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. You can message us at the SuperConnectivity Facebook page. You can tweet me at Charlie Esser, CharlieEsser. The two E's in the middle mean quality. And Phil, if they want to talk to you and say, why are you dealing with this idiot every week, where can they commiserate with you for your troubles?
No, I think you've proven tonight you're no idiot. They can email me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com, and on Twitter, I'm at nightwingpdp.
Okay, and this has been Super Connectivity. Connect with us again.